microphone's on. It is on. All right, welcome back. This is our final tank in the introduction series of what tanks we have here in the house. This is our 75-gallon Africa tank. Remember in one of the other videos, I talked about how I like to keep my tanks region specific. So this is Africa. This is a Lake Malawi tank. So in here we have different kinds of haps, different kinds of peacocks, OBs, all different kinds of things. Some very unique, more rare, I'll say, peacocks and haps. Some very unique ones that the fish store gets in occasionally. And then, just some more common OBs and stuff like that we've gotten through collecting these. Now, this tank specifically was set up for my wife. Similar to Asia, where she had to have a fire eel, this was her end goal. She really wanted Africa. She really liked these guys. She thinks they're just so cool at the pet store. And honestly, I have a very love-hate relationship with this tank. And let me explain the reason why. They are beautiful fish. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely beautiful coloring. Look fantastic. Some of these fish are just like undeniably gorgeous. I mean, even like this one right here, just, it has this like purple blue with the tail with the dots on it, with the orange dots on it. Just absolutely so cool. Some bangas and stuff, right? Just some really, really cool fish that we have in here. The orange, the Venusis, the Livingstone eye. And they all have beautiful coloring. So I love the way the tank looks. I do. I think it looks wonderful. The problem that I have is their cost. And the cost is really the problem. Each one of these fish you see in here, depending on how big they are and what they are, you're talking anywhere from probably as low as $25, $30 a fish, maybe $35, all the way up to some of these are probably $80, $85 a fish. And like, I think this Insignis right here was, God, I don't even remember how much he was. I mean, he's gotten bigger since we've gotten him. When we originally got him, he was not that big of a fish. He's just progressively gotten big. And so my problem with these guys is that their cost is really high. And so when one of them dies, it's really hard because you want that fish back, or, you miss him from the tank or whatever, right? And so you have to then go out and shell out some more money to go get that fish again. And that's if they have them. The problem is that they don't, they may not always have exactly what you had in stock, right? They may not have an albino sunshine or a deep water or whatever, right? They may have to order them in. Some of these are more fairly common, right? But other ones don't really come in all that often. Like, there's a few in here, like this one, it looks like a Nagara. It's not a Nagara, it's some other name I don't remember, but it's like they don't get these in all the time. I think it's like Mbutu or something like that. Anyways, but they don't get those all the time. And so when they come in, get one, but if it dies, you lose it, right? And so I have a very love-hate relationship with this tank. And I do have quite a few of them in here, trying to break up the aggression as much as I can, which I have solved that problem. And the way that I broke up the aggression was you just load the damn tank up with as many fish as you possibly are willing to maintenance. Their water is perfectly fine. It does look a little bit dirty, but this water, no matter what I do, is always dirty with the particulates. And it's because they are constantly going all the way down to the rocks. They pick them up, they take them up to the top, and then they let them go, and they fall down. It's Carib Sea African cichlid mix, which I actually use with the South Americans too, just because of its granular size, and I really like the way that it looks and stuff. But this tank is just such a pain in the butt to keep clean. And it's not the water quality, it's just they just make a mess, and then they're overeaters. You just have to constantly keep them fed. And I overfeed them so that they don't get bellies, but even still, I was looking tonight before I filmed this video, I've got a few in here that are just barely starting to get the little, the belly on the underside, kind of the opposite of what I have, where they're just starting to get skinny again. And what I noticed, with these guys, what happens is they have a pecking order. So you get one or two of them in here that just think they're, king of the tank. And ironically, it's not the biggest one. The biggest one is not who you think would be the pecking order, right? It's just one who thinks he's hot shit and he owns the tank. And then the rest of them kind of go non-dominant. Like I have tried bangas. I love the way bangas look. I've probably had 5 or 10 of them. maybe 20. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how many I've had. I know I've had a lot of them. It's definitely been probably at least 5. Every time I go pick up a banga or a sunshine from the fish store, they always look good. Blue face, yellow, absolutely gorgeous coloring, right? And then I get them home and they either die a few weeks later or they go non-dominant. And when they go non-dominant, the Africans here in Lake Malawi, they turn gray. They try to revert to what a female looks like because a female is much smaller and, severely ugly. That's why this is for sure, this tank is all males. And so they go non-dominant and they just get this ugly coloring. I actually have 2 or 3 non-dominants in here right now that are super non-dominant. And they're so non-dominant that I don't know what they are. I know one for sure is the banga. The other one over here, I don't know what he started out as, life out as. He's just non-dominant. I have another one in there who's also non-dominant as well. So there's a few that just go non-dominant and they go gray. Now, I have been told that they can get their color back. You give them a few weeks and they'll go back if they realize that they can be dominant again. And from my understanding, they do that. That's how they avoid the aggression, is they become less colorful, less pretty against the other males. In fact, you can see the 3 non-dominant ones right there, right in the line. 1, 2, 3. But they try to become non-dominant because they don't want to be attacked and pretty by the prettiest male. For these guys, the way reproduction works is whichever one is the prettiest fish gets to reproduce with the females, right? So everybody's trying to flash their colors and be pretty right up until the point where they all start getting attacked, and then that's when they have problems. What is weird though is I had 5 originally, but now I have 4 deep waters. And of the deep waters, 2 of them, especially this guy right here, is extremely colored up. I mean, just extremely colored up. And then one of them is not. I can still tell he's a deep water because of his stripes, but he's definitely not the dominant deep water. So it's weird when you start keeping some that are the same because they start to go non-dominant. And it's weird, just not like the other ones where they just go completely gray. They still keep somewhat of their colors. But so anyways, like I said, it's a love-hate relationship with this tank because, I really enjoy looking at it. Originally where this tank was in our living room, and I got to stare at it just all day as we're sitting there watching TV and at night. And I would just constantly find myself watching it versus TV. Like even now, I think they're so cool. And this is the tank, like everybody likes the other tanks, right? Oh, fish, whatever. But then when they come in here and they see the colors and they see the, what they look like and the size of these fish, this is the tank where everybody just goes, oh my gosh, right? And the question I get with this one all the time is, oh, are they saltwater? No, they're a freshwater fish, which I think is just always the most surprising part for everybody, right? Is that they're a freshwater fish versus a saltwater fish. So I love this tank because it gives you that wow factor. It gives you that, oh my God, that's so cool. That's great. That's, amazing. I do like it. It's just too hard to watch them die and then try to go grab another fish or get another fish or, try to just keep the tank. So it's kind of one of those, like, do you just go, okay, one died, go to the fish store, grab another one, or, grab a different whatever, and you just have a constant rotation, right? Originally, I was taking some of them back in and trading them back in if they were, like, too aggressive or not aggressive enough, trying to get a good mix of personality, which I do think that's important when you have these fish, is you have to work with the fish store and really, really have them work with you that, hey, I put this fish in, maybe he's a little bit too aggressive and he's killing everybody in the tank, can I trade him back in? Or, oh my God, this huge fish went to the corner, he's hiding, he's never come out again, can I trade him back in for something else and, maybe get something a little bit more aggressive? I was talking to my wife the other day about this tank, and the one thing I do think that I have noticed about them is, unlike the other tanks, which is what I said, that I really like getting fish small and growing them up. But these guys, you can't do that. You can't. You almost have to get them big. And I originally was getting a medium to large, air quotes. It's like 4 to 5 inches, maybe 6. And I just don't think I can do that anymore. I think if I'm going to keep Africans like this, I think I'm going to just have to get them, as big as this German red shoulder is right here. I'm just going to have to get them more close to full size because if they're big like that, so the Insignis was smaller when we got him, but he was still fairly large compared to everybody else in the tank. The Red Shoulder and a few other ones have caught up to him now, and in fact, he's still a little bigger because he's a hap, not a peacock. I think if I get them bigger, they just tend to do better. And so maybe that's the trick, right? Maybe that's the trick, is you just got to get them big, or you got to have a tank of all small ones that you're willing to grow up over a period of years. And so the discussion that we've been having most recently is, do we keep this tank, upgrade it for sure? This is the other one I mentioned in the other video, that we were going to try to get another, 225 and put it in a room and just give them a hell of a lot more room. And if I go to a 225, the 75 right now, the 75 keeps them fairly contained and the aggression level down. If I go to a 225, I'm afraid there's 3 fish in here that will probably just want to kill everybody. I think they'll take over the tank and they'll just take over. And there is, when I first started with Africans, it was a learning curve. You would hear it at night, or when you were sitting there, when it was in the living room with us, you would hear them go from one side of the tank to the other and bash their heads into the wall because they were trying to kill another fish. And you would look over and you would just see 2 or 3 of them going to town on one poor fish until he was dead. They are not afraid to kill another male to have the chance to reproduce. And I kid you not, from across, and they would hit. And so overloading them just exponentially has really allowed them, not to fight. You can see a little bit of fighting right now. We're just going to town a little bit on each other. But that's also because the lights are on. So the other trick with this tank is I don't keep the lights on. This tank is dark 90% of the day. In fact, it's usually only on when I go to feed them, and then the rest of the time it's completely off. And that's for 2 reasons. One is algae control for sure. Make sure, because there's so many damn fish in here, make sure I don't just pollute the tank with algae and other stuff, right? But the other thing is, when it's dark, they don't know what the hell's going on. So when it's dark, it just works out so nicely that they can't go and fight each other, right? So this being, not a display tank out where it is bright all the time, really has helped and stuff. Side note, side quest. I was at the Denver Aquarium a few months ago, many moons ago. I was at the Denver Aquarium and they had an African tank. And what was so surprising about that was, huge display, probably a few 1,000-gallon tank. And they probably had, hundreds, if not 1,000 African Malawi, late Malawi fish in there. And they had a few Victorian and Tanganyikans too. And they were all gray. 100% of them were gray. And it wasn't female. They were all gray. And I think it was because they literally had that tank so stocked that they couldn't swim. They weren't even moving. So all of them just went non-dominant, and it looked terrible. Because when I walked by and I saw, late Malawi, Africa, let's see what they got, right? And they were all gray, and so I was really disappointed by that when I was at the Denver Aquarium. Very happy mine do not look like that. So my point is if I do go to a 225 or a larger tank for these guys, it'll obviously help me with water quality and whatever, and just size and keeping everybody swimming. The thing is, though, is I think I would have to add even more fish. And I would probably have to go to probably 75 or 80 fish, honestly, and just have a big school of them so that way they could just not fight and kill each other. And once again, the problem with that is cost. We had ordered some of these guys in, and there was a time where we were losing between 2 and 3 fish a day or a week. There was a point where I think we burned through 6 fish in one night. And that turned out to be the supplier that the fish store had gotten probably, wasn't the best, we found out. And, lots of people had some fish die from that round. But of the fish that I had bought, you do the math, I had probably lost somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000, in that range, literally within 2 weeks, right? And so that's really hard to swallow. Not that can't happen to the other tanks, but as far as cost goes, this is the most expensive tank for the total of fish that are in it. The other tanks have more fish, so they might be more dollar value because there's more fish, but per fish, this is the most expensive tank. Because like I said, on the cheap end, these guys are $35, $45 a fish. And then, you get up there and some of the other ones, you're looking 65, 75, 80. I had a Lepochromis hap or whatever it was called. Absolutely gorgeous fish. I think he was like $80, whatever. Either way, and he died like 4 weeks later, And that's just really, really, really hard to swallow. So I have a severe love-hate relationship with this tank. It's weird because I haven't actually looked at it this close in a few weeks since it got moved into the room that it's in now, just because I'm not usually in this room. And I think they're absolutely beautiful fish. I think they're so cool. I just don't like paying for them. Now, as far as care goes for these guys, because there is so many, I am doing probably between an 80 to a 90% water change on this tank every few days. I try to keep it as just genuinely clean as I possibly can. I use Fritz, what's it called? It's an extreme concentration of bacteria for these guys. It's designed for monster fish, Fritz monster fish stuff. When we do the product reviews and stuff, I'll show you guys that, but that's what I use in this tank. And that has seemed to help a lot with the amount of waste and stuff, because this tank, you can't get away with the whole, don't feed them every but 2-3 days rule, or, keep them hungry or whatever, right? These guys are hungry every day. And at one point, I was trying to do the every other day, or, not as much at a time, but they're so aggressive in here that they are not afraid to kill each other over food. And so I'm at the point where I feed just a ton of food. I mean, literally, probably 4 or 5, if not 6 tablespoons of extreme food at one time, just so that everybody in there can get food without trying to kill each other. And that has seemed to help. That has seemed to lower the aggression. But obviously that means I have to do more water changes. In fact, that's why you can kind of see the bits floating around. Was before the video, I cleaned up the protein that was on the glass, and so it's still just not filtered out yet. But anyways, I really love this tank. It's just hard with the cost. In fact, the last few days we've lost a few. I think we lost my Nagara, which took months to get in. I lost an albino. I'm pretty sure it was the other albino Benga, now that I'm looking at it, because I have the albino, that one. Oh, no, it was not. I know what it was. It was the albino Taiwan reef. It finally died. He's gone. I was wondering for a few days what it was that was gone. It's the albino Taiwan reef that finally died. And I lost my Taiwan reef, which was really, really sad, because he was a gorgeous fish. So that's what I mean. Like, they're perfectly fine until they aren't. And if disease spreads in this tank, it kind of goes like wildfire, and you'll lose all of them. In fact, I think of the original fish that I have started with, I probably have 15 that are from the first time I started this tank. That's just how bad. And I've watched other videos where people have these types of tanks, African, and even they say the same thing, that they struggle with keeping them alive, that they'll lose 1 or 2 fish a month, if not more. And part of me just wonders if that's just the aggression level. These guys, they just cannot help. In fact, I've got one right now. There's an otter point in the back that was super pretty, doing super well, absolutely gorgeous fish, and we got him, just a really, really pretty otter point. And now he's, if I can kind of see him floating there, kind of coming up, he likes to hide in the back. But I'm pretty sure within the next day or two he's going to die. He's got a pretty severe open wound on his side, and I think it's because he's been attacked. And, I've seen videos, like I was saying, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I've watched a lot of videos where people are like, these are one of the hardest ones to keep, because they will just kill each other randomly. Like, they will decide, I don't like this guy, and they'll just take him out. And so it's a really hard tank to keep alive, because you as the fish keeper are doing everything right, but then they just die. And so that's really hard. Which I also know that cichlids from South America and other countries can do the same thing, but they don't tend to do it at the rate that these guys do. These are genuine killers. So it's just really hard, right? But I don't know. The other idea for this tank, if I do switch it out, is no matter what, like I've said in other videos, I'm going to get a bigger tanks, right, for all the fish as they start to get bigger and bigger. But do I swap out maybe the Oscars that are upstairs in the grow out tank, the South American grow out tank, which is one of the first videos, Do I swap out the 5 bumblebees and then take out that tiger out of Asia, a tiger Oscar, put him in here, and then I have some papateras, and I'm going to get a few more, maybe get some other geophagas, and maybe just put in here and grow them up, because geos and tigers are eventually going to get big. So do I maybe go do that and just put them kind of in their own home for a while and let them grow up? I don't know. It's one of those things. Like I said, this is the hardest tank for me, because I love to hate it, right? I keep it up because of my wife, and she loves it, and everybody thinks they're pretty, but it's such a hard pill to swallow when they're so expensive per fish, or you get attached because you're really pretty, like this guy right here. It's a VC10. I've never seen one before until they had one in the store, and just absolutely cool fish. Like, that was not the color we brought him home with, and he colored up entirely, and he is so cool. That VC10 is just absolutely cool. And like the deep waters, like I saw the deep waters first when we were at the store, at the waterfront, and I was like, wow, that is just the coolest coloration. I think the deep waters are so cool. And I have a eye biter in here as well. He's let's see where the eye biter is. He's right there. I have an eye biter hap, and he's the same thing, just such a cool fish, such a pretty body shape, such a pretty color. And they have some other really cool haps and stuff that I'd really like to get, like a sand diver. I think sand divers are really pretty too. So that's what I mean, like, you can see the struggle. Do I keep it, put them into a bigger home, go spend some more money that I don't have, and, get more of them in a bigger home, right? Or do I swap it out and then, maybe have 2 South America tanks that have kind of different regions from South America? I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments, what you guys think. Like, oh my God, I'll never have them, or oh my God, I have to have them. They're just this amazing fish that I think everybody should have. Interesting to see what you guys think, but it's such a cool tank to watch, but yeah, this one's hard for me. I don't know. Anyways, this is our final tank. To wrap things up, remember, we have a 75 grow out tank for South America. That's an Aquarium Masters tank. And this tank actually that you're looking at is a carbon copy. It's sitting on the same stand, the same filtration. I mean, 100% of it is the same, even down to the outlets and everything that I used. Both of these tanks were set up identically at the same time as I was learning, so that way the tank wouldn't become the outlier on what I had to learn. I wanted everything to be the same. So this and the grow out tank are the same South American 75 tanks. Aquarium Masters tanks, right? 75-gallon Aquarium Masters. And then the other tanks out there are obviously the different size. So, yeah. Keep going. Thanks, everybody. Huh. Love you.